Again. My name is Miki Wright, and I want to welcome you guys to Beauty Superstars Talk. I'm the founder of Beauty Superstars, and we've recently started having these conversations. It's really about celebrating excellence from beauty artists who happen to be Black, and we want to showcase some of the best, and we've had such a great lineup prior to this. I'm super excited about today. My guest today, as you guys probably know, is Keya Artistically Neal. And I want to read a little bit of her bio, and we will start to kind of jump right in. We'll keep this conversational, and as I mentioned, we'll be able to take questions. If you guys have questions, just put them in the chat versus the Q&A, and try to keep it as streamlined as possible. So, Ms. Keya Neal, she is a beauty brand strategist, color coach, texture specialist, educator, ABCH certified. She'll tell us a little bit about that when we go through and talk. Inner coiffure member, industry advocate, and change maker. And it's like that's come to the forefront, I guess. It's like I feel like this is the time when we're going to talk about ready for a revolution. So
amen.
So they call her the agitator. She's a stylist of 26 years. She's been an educator, guest artist, consultant, and platform artist for several major brands. She founded Color Culture in 2015, designed to educate and empower all nationalities and cultures with unparalleled color curriculums. Say that 3 times fast.
Try it.
Okay. She coaches and mentors individually and in groups. She hosts a digital coaching, that's coaching with a K, program along with live webinars. He was the first African-American female educator at the ABCH Summit in 2018 and keynote speaker for the 2019 Energizing Summit. And she says the church and the salons are the last 2 institutions left that are segregated. This is why she's committed to the increase of inclusion and diversity in the beauty industry, hence the birthing the movement and initiative Texture versus Race. And she now consults with brands to restructure their business models and to be more inclusive and diverse at their core. And her ultimate goal is to share the love of color and texture with everyone and improve the overall landscape of the beauty industry. And her mission is to destroy ignorance with knowledge. So I'm really excited to be here today.
I'm excited to be here, Miss Miki. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. It's like this is all about people of color, of Black artists who are excelling in what they're doing. And from a lot of the stories that I heard recently, it's like excelling in a lot of times against all odds. And so this is where I want to provide like a safe space for people to tell their own stories, where there isn't a narrative around what your story should be or what we think you said. So
right.
I want to, I guess, start with where we met. It's like we met through a mutual friend, through Brian Bennett. Was wandering through the Bronner show a few years ago. And he's like, have you met Keya? And I was like, no, I haven't. And so he took me over and introduced me. And I loved your setup, with the color. I love the look of the color education that you were providing. I love that you were providing color education. I've been in this industry a long time. And, say 20 years ago, it's like there were a few of us who were doing color. There wasn't as much demand from the clientele unless they were gray. I had some blondes and that type of thing during that time frame. So we did quite a bit in our salon, but not overall. And now just, fast forward in the last 5 years, I think it's just taken off. And so tell us about, like how you got started in the industry and what pulled you toward color.
So I started doing hair about 26 years ago, not really thinking I was going to be in the hair industry. Really, I went to college for journalism.
Okay.
So I was thinking I was going to be a journalist, a writer of some sort, advertising, public relations, all of that. And somehow I just got bored and I was like, okay, no, I don't think this is what I want to do. And someone suggested that I go to cosmetology school, and I was like, I'm not sure about that. And I thought about it. I was like, well, I'll give it a try. And when I got in it, I was like, okay, no, I really like this. I realized quickly that I was really behind the curve. I sucked at doing hair, actually. I just wasn't good at all because I wasn't that most of the stylists in school, the students already have some type of idea that they want to do hair all their life. Like they have dolls and they've been playing in their friends' hair. They've been kind of, doing hair in the kitchen. And I was like, none of that. And so I was really behind the curve, and I had to work a lot harder to create what would have looked like anything promising, even if in school, and it took a minute. Like I had to work a lot harder than everybody else to try to catch up and catch on and keep going. So, that's kind of how I landed in the industry. I didn't think I would, but I'm glad I'm here.
Right. Well, we're glad you're here too. And with, getting started in the industry, and like you said, not being a natural at it and having thought you'd do it all your life or what have you, what made you like transition into, color?
So I was a cutter at first.
Okay.
I really thought that cutting hair was the thing for me because I really enjoyed it. But then I enjoyed coloring as well. So it got to be this beautiful symmetry between cutting and color that I really loved. But I also realized that I was limited in my color because I wanted to do everybody. I wanted to do what I had been seeing, what I had been exposed to, going to the bigger shows, the more diverse shows, or, the more, white shows where I saw more. And so, with exposure comes the idea, it's a fire lit at that point, because I wasn't just seeing, Black stylists just doing Black color. I was seeing more streamlines, more things that I was not already good at, and I wanted to be good at it. So when I decided I wanted to lean into color a little bit more, I also knew I had to change where I was living, like thriving and in the salon space. So when I moved from South Carolina to Maryland is when I got to work in a multicultural salon so that I could really cultivate that skill and go from doing just what I knew on my traditional clientele to working on a very multicultural clientele. And that kind of really led me to teaching color specifically because I knew at that point how everybody was missing it. At that point, I kind of started putting the dots together like, oh, okay, this is why we don't understand this. Okay, this is where there was a mishap, or this is the information that's missing from the curriculum. So I developed a curriculum that would bridge all of that information together so that everybody could really learn from the beginning, not because they didn't know some of it, but if you go from the beginning and it's all inclusive and it's much more intentional of getting you to understand the bits and the pieces and where we may have, dropped the ball, not even dropped the ball. We were never given the ball. Right. So, there are just some areas that we have lacked in the education. I felt like that was my space to live in, is to help people get over on the other side of the education for color.
Yeah, there's definitely so much to learn from, regarding color, because everything is, you got all your basics and your fundamentals, but then you get the hair and you start to add in other, parts to the equation. Right. And so there's a lot of pieces to learn. So with color, like you were saying that you worked in a multicultural salon, were you seeing missing pieces from like everyone that you worked with, or were you seeing it more in the Black industry, or what were your observations?
So as I was learning, because when you're a teacher, because I was already an educator, right? And I already taught color some, I taught what I was doing. I taught how to cut and color because we did, platform artistry. So you had to learn how to do and explain everything. But when it came to a specific theory, while I'm learning, I was learning how to teach it. And so while I was learning, every time a light bulb went off for me, I was like, I know for a fact we don't know that. And when I say we, I mean the African-American community, because we didn't, like I said, the book wasn't really made for us to really understand it because we couldn't really use that same approach to different fabrics of hair that would sit in our chair. So, that information was almost useless to us if you were not doing that particular client and working on that particular fabric of hair. So for me, I felt like I understood where those little pockets of darkness were for us to not get it. Like, why couldn't we get it? And when we would go to classes, even if you wanted to learn color and you went to certain, a certain class that may have been given by, a white person or a white dominant brand, they automatically thought and assumed that you were on a certain level already. So some of the basic education was missing, and a lot of us just didn't have it. So I wanted to do it without being brand specific and teach you how to be a better colorist and a better scientist around color versus teaching you just how to work with certain colors or certain brands or doing certain techniques. I wanted to make people proficient in learning how to do color, period. So yeah, in my learning, I learned how to reteach it.
Right. Okay. Okay. Yeah. I used to teach fabulous finishes, which was a little bit more focused on the cutting and the styling part, really the styling, but you can't style without a cut. So it was like we taught the
Mm-hmm.
cutting, and it was similar because, it's like you'd go to classes and you'd say, oh, I've got like a basic cutting class, and no one comes. Then you've got the advanced color class, cutting class, and everybody's in it, but they don't know any of the basics. So it's
They don't know
like,
the basics. So it's like nobody wants to be charged with, okay, maybe I just need to
right,
go back to the basic. They look
right.
at that like that's a negative thing, when really what was the biggest eye opener for me in my curriculum in color culture and in the career of color culture was that everybody, no matter what culture you were in, there was a sort of a disconnect with color curriculum, period,
Right.
across the board. Like I thought we were the only ones. Like I thought African Americans in our community was the only ones. But to be honest with you, there's just as many confused
Yeah.
other people. So
Hmm.
I think we should feel better about that. I'm like, let me let you off the hook. White isn't right, and all white people don't just know how to do color. And I didn't realize that until I started educating on this level. And I realized how many people, no matter who they are and what culture they were from, they really
Hmm.
appreciated the color culture curriculum.
Yeah, yeah. So I definitely think it meets a need. It fits a bill, because even with like really good schools, it's like I've been on the manager side where I'm hiring, and just
Mm-hmm.
asking people, okay, well, tell me about the color wheel, and they're like, it's like you've been,
Right,
1,500 hours in, and it's like you're like, and,
right.
and even at schools that have more of a color curriculum or a color, where you're thinking it's like you go there because you want to learn color. It's like there's most of the students, I would say, are coming out and they still don't understand
They
color.
don't. They can't see the importance of the foundation yet because we
Hmm.
push an agenda of the result,
Hmm.
not the journey to get to it.
Yeah, the
Because we're
style.
so visual, we want to see the result. We're enthralled with the 30-minute slow-mo, 30-second slow-mo video. We want that.
Right, right. Yep, you definitely got to lay the foundation. So let's fast forward to ABCH, and you tell us what that is and why you joined.
So the ABCH stands for the American Board of Certified Hair Colorists, which is an elite organization that qualifies you through testing and study to be a colorist, a scientific colorist. So when you got that certification, it basically said that you were the top of the top, the creme de la creme, the color educator, the color artist, whatever, and you held this certificate because you met all the criteria that they asked you to meet. And so it was a rigorous, journey for that. It did take me 90 days to study for it. It was a long day's test. Um, the prep for that, it was exhausting, but it was so worth it because I needed that to sort of qualify me where I was going.
Hmm.
So when you're teaching color education, it's really good to start getting papers behind you that sort of qualify you so that people go, oh, okay, so you're ABCA certified. Oh, okay, we can listen to you. So sometimes you gotta get stacked up. You gotta get your
Right.
papers with you. So,
Exactly.
I had to get some papers,
Okay.
got that. And that was an amazing journey. I really liked doing that because now I understand what that level of expectancy is. How do we operate at that level? What does that look like? How do you want people to show up for that? How do you want them to excel? And how do you even qualify that? So that was a really good thing. I'm very proud of that certificate because it was a lot. And
Right.
I don't make people think it was an easy feat. It wasn't. Not for me anyway. Maybe just you know.
Yeah, from the people I've spoken to, it
No,
wasn't easy, and it's not meant to be easy because, like you say, it's
no.
meant to raise that bar of excellence.
Well,
And
they actually have a 70% fail rate.
hmm I'm not surprised.
They do. Most of the people fail, and then they come back. Usually they
Mhm.
test twice before they
Okay.
get it. And I took that as a that was fire. That was a challenge because first
Right.
of all, I wasn't going back.
Okay.
I wasn't doing it twice. Like I already knew in my mind, like this was either I was gonna get it or I wasn't ever gonna get it.
Okay.
So I wasn't it was too much. It was too much. Mentally, it was too much. You had to be focused on it. It was
Right.
something you had to work at every day. It wasn't even something you could just pick up a book and say, well, I'm gonna just read the book and study and cram. No, it was a preparation the entire journey that
hmm
led you to this space. And here's the thing, most of the tests, 40% of the test is just them trying to figure out whether you can follow directions. And
hmm
believe it or not, that 40% can fail you. And the reason why it fails you is because you don't want to follow directions.
Right.
You just want to be what you want to do, what you want to do, and what you know is true, versus listening to what
Right.
someone says and following directions.
hmm
So that part tends to get people, but that's the 40% that can fail you.
Right. Right. And that sounds like the difference between like the scientific versus the creative.
Right. And the creative does fight with the science sometimes
Right. Right.
because science is so subjective sometimes too, you know.
hmm
We mix that up, and when people are taking tests like that, they tend to want to interject what they know and what they feel. And so this organization that says, but this is our criteria. We want to make sure you can do this, and this the way that we said it.
Right.
This is our criteria.
Mm.
After that, you can go do it any way you want to, but can you follow direction? And to be honest, that's a humbling experience too. That
Mhm.
journey is very humbling because I mean, I remember a couple of times I was like, I don't know if I agree. She was like, we didn't ask you to agree. We asked you to follow that. And I was like, word. Okay, here we go. But that gets you all the way together. You know what I'm
Right,
saying? That it
exactly.
puts you in, it's like, it's almost corporate.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so, people that come with a corporate experience, I thought I saw Miss Fatima actually make a comment. I can't see because she's not in the Zoom, but I often see her hashtag sometimes, like, I got degrees in this. Like, and so there's a
Right,
corporate, corporate thrives a little different.
right.
So having that balance of the corporate experience and the creative is a really successful combination.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't think, and you can tell me what you think, I don't think you can really succeed without some level of discipline and some level of humility and some level of, it's like in running a business and running the business that I had, it's like, we had to adapt. This is the way we do it here. And so you
Hmm.
can bring in what you have done before. Don't leave that, sit it to the side, do it the way we're saying do it, and then start to add in and integrate from there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like there has to be a core structure with anything that
Mhm.
enables that you have discipline attached to that. Everything else is like leaves, but you got to have the whole tree, and the trunk has to be stable, and then you have your branches of your preference and what
Right,
you
right.
like and what you prefer and all these other different little pieces to it. So you're absolutely right, but there has to be core structure. I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah, yeah, and that discipline piece that can get us as, as creative
Yeah.
people. But I
Yeah,
think it also
artists are hard
accelerates.
to manage.
I think it accelerates the creativity. Would you?
It does. I think that when people get a hold to some structure, they figure out how to amplify the artistic approach. But artistry can get lost in your character, no matter how
Ooh,
good you are. So
ooh, did
one of
y'all hear
my
that one?
favorite, no, they might not like me for that one, but one of my favorite quotes is that talent will take you places that character won't let you stay. And I've been
Mm,
quoting that and saying that for years for people to remember. I tell it to my children, like, no
right,
matter how good you are at a thing, if you don't cultivate this side of you, then this can't thrive. It's
right,
almost like you need this to lift this. But you can be as good as you want to be, but if you're flighty and all over the place and you don't have any discipline and no structure,
right.
it kind of it's kind of hit or miss for you. So yeah, I agree. We are on the same page.
Yeah, and I think, just while we're on this for a second, like, um, there's been, I guess, in the industry, like the moving toward the salon suites, which I don't have anything against salon suites, but I think that you can become more creative by working with people and learning how to work in a team and a group and get along. And, when I first started working across from a stylist who was extremely talented, excellent, one of the best cutters ever that I've met, but it's like we were across from each other playing off of our mirrors. And so we would see different things with the other person's client that it's like, well, oh, what if you just tried, such and such? And then, it's like we were humble enough to say, yeah, let's try that. And it's like, it'll be like, oh, that was even better than it was before, because it's like you have this collaboration. And I think we've gotten so far away from that because we don't want any discipline. We don't want anybody saying, that, you need to be here at a certain time and you need to dress professionally and you need to do all of these things that lead to more creativity.
I want to speak to that because I feel a couple of ways about the suites. So me personally, I do not like suites for me. First of all, I'm too much. I like to talk. I mean, I don't know if y'all noticed that at all, but I like to talk to people. I like to collaborate. I like to feed off of energy. I like to be like, you go girl, that looks great. I love a team focused environment. I like a team structured environment for me. That's how I thrive. However, I understand that the team module has not been the most successful in not only the Black community, any community, but especially the Black community, because we never had a structured module to like anyway. There weren't as many. Now, you talking about yours, but how many did you know that were running the module that really helped to, maybe they were a commission, or they had team building strategies, they had regular meetings, they had in-salon education. There's a structure, there's a whole module around that helps people see that as a benefit. So I think a lot of people left the salons because of two reasons. One, the salon, maybe wasn't operating at its best in that space. And then you also had people who had this mindset like, well, I don't need you to tell me nothing. I don't want to give you none of my money. I don't want to give you 50%. And it fed, and when the suites came out, it fed into this, I don't want to have to work with people. Right. I don't want to have to conform. I don't want to have to listen. So I'm just going to go do my own thing. And I'm going to put my name on the door, and I'm going to pay my own, whatever it is. And I think it's twofold. So I think, while I don't blame one or the other entirely by themselves, I think it's going to take all of us together to collectively heal that and to come back to say, but can we restore the team structure back into the community? Because I think because we were never lent to, and this is also something I speak about, the reason why a team structure works well in a white culture is because they had access to certain things that helped them thrive better, like certain business classes and education, and how they bought products, and how they got in-salon education on a regular basis to train them on retail, or how to use certain things. Like that was a huge eye-opener when I started working for this multicultural salon, because I had no idea that because they bought a certain amount of product, that they got points and they got free back bar and they got education. I had no idea until about 2012. And like I said, I've been doing it since 1994, and I had no idea that there was a such thing. So I think that where that sort of feeds into that module that makes it work on one side, there's so many more benefits. The African American community didn't have that. Let's think about that. We bought from a singular company, a manufacturer, not a manufacturing house, not a distribution house like Cosmoprof or Beauty Scope or Twin States or whatever those big distribution houses that that sell almost everything. And you get to choose whether we didn't have that. We didn't have the in-salon education. So of course, I kind of feel like by measure of disparity, we sort of dismantled the team structure because it was never structured For real, for real. There was very few that understood that and
Mm-hmm.
could put that together. But how many of those historically, I'm not talking about now, but historically, how many of those do we really know? Like really full to capacity commission salons. How many salons did we know like that? Most of the salons had the owner and maybe one person. If they had more than 5 people, I was impressed.
Mm-hmm.
Impressed.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely spoke to a lot of things that need to be addressed in terms of like systemic issues that we face that we don't even know
Right.
that we're facing because we don't even have
We
access
don't even
to
know. We still
what's
don't
going
know.
on. So we don't even know what we don't know.
We don't even know we're missing out right now.
Right, right. But I do think, and I don't even want to go too deep into this, but I thought you brought up some really great points. And it's like, I've definitely had the great experiences and privileges to have worked with some people and have seen some people, through my early career as well as, throughout. And I definitely took it upon myself to do a lot of research and learning and education. It's like I sometimes find a binder that I'm like, oh yeah, I did go to this class,
Right.
But it is taking all of those things into consideration when we start to talk about salon ownership and becoming a leader and those types of things. But I don't want to dig too deep into those weeds because we could have a great conversation just about that.
Right.
But I want to actually kind of switch gears because one of the things that I'm curious about, and I don't know if anybody else is, you did an iconic, I guess, interview with Mary with Behind the Chair, Mary Rector. And I just wanted to kind of get your sense from, your perspective of how it went originally. And, it's like from my perspective, I found you very grounded. Maybe that's the word, that you were able to maintain your center and, focus, push into the right buttons, but also, have compassion while you were not letting anyone off the hook. So,
That was a good assessment.
Yeah.
I tried to thrive in all 3 of those because I knew it had the capacity that it had going in. I just didn't know it was going to land in my lap until like a few hours before that, like that
Oh, wow.
day.
That
Yeah,
day.
it wasn't a planned thing. No, it wasn't planned. I think what people don't realize is that Mary and I, Behind the Chair and I had fallen out about 2 years ago over a post that they posted. And I didn't get a chance to say much of anything, but people were tagging me in the post. And so they already knew, or they didn't like the rhetoric that was going because it was a very negative post and they had about 600 negative comments by the time I even got to it. And as soon as I started to say anything, they started blocking me. So really about 30 minutes before the whole live, I had to remind them that they had blocked me and that they needed to unblock me. So I could
unblock you to even have the conversation.
I was like, y'all know y'all blocked me, right? I was like, you got to unblock me so we can do the live. They were like, oh my God, okay. I don't think people really knew that we didn't have no relationship,
Right.
Going into it was negative. She had already blocked me and was like, off all of it. Like she was like, because she didn't want to hear anything I had to say. So not having that relationship, when Mary I met her like 6 months earlier at the ISSE.
Okay.
This is how that came about. Someone introduced us and they said, this guy said, George Alderetti, I don't know if you're familiar with him, he's with Kuhn. And he says, Mary has to meet you. That's what he says. He says, she has to meet you. And he says, Mary, you need to talk to her. You need to get with her because she's going to help you with your business and learning how to be more diverse and inclusive. So and he was very emphatic about that. So our conversation at the time was like, yes, let's get together, get with my people and we'll just set something up. And I kind of walked away like, I'm not messing with Mary. Like, I don't know. I just didn't feel the pulling at the time to follow up with her. But now in retrospect, I realized God didn't want me to interact with her at that time so that what happened would be clean.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense, but I believe God does everything the way it's supposed to. She needed to be familiar, but not too familiar so that it could happen the way it happened.
Right.
So just by chance that same day, I don't know, we were in the thick of things, you know, emotions were high, and, you know, my lives were setting off all kind of fireworks at the time. And because we were only like maybe a week or so in, you know, with all that was going on. And God said, inbox her. And I was like, well, first of all, I'm blocked. And so he was like, I was like, I'm blocked. And so he was like, no, but you're not blocked off of these other platforms. So go on Texture versus Race and inbox her. And so I said to her, I said, hey, Mary, I said, I don't know if you remember meeting me at ISSC. I said, but you and I were supposed to have a conversation. I think now would be a good time. And she said to me, I think you're right. She says, of course. She says, get with my team. We'll make something happen. Well, the team inboxed me and they said, we can do something in a couple of days, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, fine. So just as we were trying to schedule, go back and forth, she just kind of pinged me and said, can you take a call right now? And I said, sure. So she called me. And for like an hour and a half, to be completely transparent right here, what y'all saw live was really a watered down version of what happened on the phone, because I really went in on the phone because it was just me and her. There was nobody to mediate between us. It was just backhand slide every which way, because I needed her to understand exactly where I was coming from. And I had no reason to hold back from her at all.
Right.
At all. And she says, what do you want me to do? Just give me 1 second. She says, what do you want me to do? And I said, throw yourself on the sword, go live with the people and let them hold court for you, because you're wrong. You've wronged people. You have wronged the Black community. You know, and I told her a lot of things. And she said, well, go with me. She says, come on, I'll do it. You do it with me. And I was like, no. She was like, yeah, come on, let's do it. Let's do it right now. And I was like, no. And she says, okay. I said, I'll go with you later on tonight. And she said, I'm gonna make a flyer and we're going to, within like 3 hours, we were live. Like literally, I taught her like between 3 and 4 or something like that. And we were live like at 8. So I was like, all right, well, here we go. And it just had to be, but y'all know I'm a mom, right? I'm a mom and my kids don't care during COVID that I'm on a live. So y'all just have to give me 2 seconds. Yeah.
Okay.
Huh? With who? Is there an adult calling? How old is Jacob? Okay. Be safe. Mm-hmm. He's just like, and I'm trying not to look at him. I'm over here with my arm like, get away. So that's how that happened with Mary. That's how that came about. And you know, I feel like we had some very honest conversations. I feel like I have to say that I think that she did a great thing by throwing herself out there. I know that it helped her too, because I think it brought just a little bit of compassion to her, because she's wronged a lot of people. Like, she doesn't have the best reputation in the industry. And no matter, look, of all cultures, not just Black people, everybody has had some, or may have had some issue or an opinion about her. But one thing I will say about her is that she's kind of a, let's just deal with it, let's just get up front with it and talk about it. When she's in, she's in. And she took it like a champ. And I think she helped shape the way everybody else kind of dived in the pool, because she sort of threw herself in the deep end, not really knowing what to expect, because she didn't know me.
Right.
You know, but she took it. And I think that she gave me a chance to kind of get off what I think everybody really wanted to say, but give her a chance to be redirected in some areas for her too. So I think it was twofold. It did some good for the industry as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was a powerful exchange. I watched the first part first, and then, you know, kind of like I don't have another however long the second part was. And so I went back to it, watched a little bit of it. And, you know, it's like there were points in it, you know, where honestly it felt like she was a little disingenuous and or disingenuine with some of the receptivity, I guess. And some of the time where, like when you were talking about the social media and she was like, oh, we've got that covered, like literally with her hand and everything, like this dismiss kind of thing. And you called her on it, which I was appreciative of. But I still don't know that she really got it. You know what I mean?
She didn't really have to be honest. I mean, did she really have to? I mean, we have to make her accountable. She didn't have to get it, but she got to do it. Somebody's out here making her feel accountable. She can sort of dismiss it, but she had a lot of people. She's got almost 60,000 views on that. That means she's got 56,000 eyeballs that are now saying to her, but I heard what you said. So are you going to do it? So I don't have to feel like you meant it at all, but I know that there's going to be an accountability to that. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Because you've got right. people who's going to put the pressure on you to do what you said you were going to do. And her team said they were going to be responsible and try and hold to that. So, I mean, it's up to the people now. It's not up to me to keep going now, Mary. I already did my part. Like, it's up to us now, like the community, the people that do still engage with her and behind the chair. It's their job to go back and go, well, can you give us an update on what it is that you're doing? They have to grade her progress. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't expect people, I'm going to tell you like this. I watched this documentary, Chelsea Handler, I think that's her name. Uh-huh. And she has this like, hello, white privilege, it's me, Chelsea, or something like that. And she was dealing with white privilege, and she interviewed this guy, and he said something that really blew my mind. This was just recently. And he said, it's hard to explain water to a fish. Mm-hmm. And he said, they don't know what the concept of water is.
Right.
They've been in it so long. It's like, what is right. water? Like, they would almost look at you like you're crazy because you're trying to get them to understand the concept of water when it embodies them. It's just the way they thought. That's how I feel about her and her whiteness mm-hmm. and her privilege. So I feel like it might take a minute. Mm-hmm. She's gonna have to get out of water for a minute before it really starts to set in that water was a luxury for her. It was it was her means of winning, right. thriving, living, functioning. But until she's out of water, and what is out of water though? Mm-hmm. What is out of water? Out of water is that accountability. Out of water is we stop following, we stop engaging, we stop spending, we stop until we get the results we want. Now, I'm not saying nobody should do that, but I'm saying if you really want, you can ask somebody to do something. You can, no. There's three ways. You can hope they're going to do the right thing. You can ask them to do the right thing, and you can guarantee they're going to do the right thing. So we're at the point where we stop hoping people going to do right by us. Right. Now we're asking you to do right by us. But at some point we got to get to, we're going to make sure you do right by us. And that part means unplugging, taking the little thing out of the bottom of the water, let the water out, or take the fish out of the water. Because mm-hmm. until people feel it like that, then they won't ever have an appreciation for that water.
Right. Yeah, I think it's from some of the conversations, that I've had and observed or what have you, it's so much, or maybe not so much, but some of wanting people who are just getting an inkling that there was a problem to be part of the solution of solving the problem. It's like they're not equipped to solve the problem because they didn't even know there was one.
And that's why we're still here so long. We're wondering why the Crown Act is necessary. Why do we have to say these things? I did a massive interview today with some very prominent people just today. And she was like, you mean people are discriminated against them? People have discrimination against them because of their hair? And I'm like, and that's the reason why we still suffer at the hands of these people, because you don't know. So there's not enough awareness around these issues, and we have to keep speaking up and speaking to people and not assuming that they know and that they just let it ride, because their privilege allows them to have like earmuffs and blinders on, so they walk around like this. Everything is just a beautiful whitewashed world. They have no idea the suffering. And even when they do see it, sometimes the privilege still allows them to say, well, it doesn't impact me, so I don't have to get into that because that's pretty sticky and ugly, and I don't want to get it. I don't want to go there.
Right, right. Yeah, absolutely. My friend calls it the bubble. It's like just in the bubble.
Yeah,
Like,
they're
okay.
just in the bubble. Yeah, I'm popping bubbles. I got a whole bag of needles. And I'm like,
Okay.
bloop. That's what I tell them. I'm popping bubbles. All of y'all that's just walking around this perpetual
Yeah.
bubble, I'm popping your bubble, and you're going to have to make a decision on what you're going to do, one way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think that was definitely groundbreaking. I think there was some awareness that was not there previous to that interview. So I'm grateful, however God worked out the details of you being able to do that was something that was needed and timely, of course. But what were your thoughts like after you left as Keya, the person?
What were my thoughts about me?
Or feeling
Um,
just like, oh gosh, like,
yeah, it was sort of surreal. I was like, you just talked to the devil wears Prada of the industry. Like, oh my God. Because I mean, we look at her like that. Like she's a conglomerate all by herself. Like she's
Mhm.
like, I was like, wow, she chose you. But it didn't come without any pushback now. Everybody didn't champion that conversation. Now, I
Mhm.
would be remiss to not say that there weren't people that didn't agree with everything. But I think that there was an agreement that at least 80 to 90% of what was said was useful, was positive. Um, I walked away feeling accomplished. I did.
Good.
I walked away feeling like God had used me in that moment to do that. I did feel like it could have been anybody, but it was me, and that's all I can say. I can't say why me. I can just say it was me,
Right.
and that's just how that's gonna go down. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you definitely rose to the occasion. So,
yeah, yeah.
um, so can you expand any more on people who weren't as, supportive or saying that, they
Right.
felt a certain way?
So even in the dialogue, because in the first hour, I couldn't see anything. I couldn't see any of the
Oh,
comments or anything. So I couldn't really gauge what the temperature was going in the comment section, which probably would have allowed me more to kind of gauge where people, what they wanted to kind of contribute to the conversation as well. And I didn't have that. I didn't have the benefit of that. But what I understood after the fact was that there were a few people that just kind of said, well, I don't know, I don't know who this young lady is, but she doesn't speak for me, because actually I don't want to be on your platform. I could care less about what you have going on, and and we don't need you. And so I think that going forward, there's this uh it's not a division, but it's a difference of opinion on how to move forward. And I think we kind of got two groups of people. We got a group of people that want to create an inclusive environment, and then we have people that want to detach, that want to be like, we don't need you, we'll just build our own. And I think that we have to either, for me, I would love to see us thrive and do both. One, heal, bridge, repair, and have some inclusive spaces that we should live in while building wealth and greatness for Black people. I think we should be doing both. So I think some people just kind of felt like, well, no, actually, I don't care if she reposts me, and I don't care if she ever, posts another Black person ever or does anything for us. We don't want no parts of her. And then I think a lot of people had issue with the hashtag. So, I had a young lady or a young man that reached out to me afterwards, and he said, and he was the only one. He says, I don't know if I really agree with that. And he says, can you tell me your thoughts around that? I said, I'm so glad you asked. I said, so in that moment, I said, just by sheer numbers alone, we are at a disadvantage of being seen, like just seen.
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I was trying to create a space where they could be reintroduced, because it wasn't like we just populated out of nowhere.
Right.
No, we have always existed. But when you look at, let's just say, 1,000 people hashtag behind the chair in a day, in a
Mm-hmm.
day's time, and then you got 3 that might hashtag behind the chair that are Black, right? And they're not necessarily fishing for you anyway, so they're not looking. So my thought was, just so we can beat the numbers, just sheer numbers, let us have a hashtag that would show solidarity between, and kind of commemorate this conversation that Behind the Chair and Texture versus Race was having at the time. And so and they were like, well, we don't want that. Why should we have a different hashtag? They need to just come look for us, and they can find us. We here, they can just look for us. And I agree. I said, okay, great, let's do something else, but let's come up with something else viable. So I guess they kind of took it like it was a Negro only hashtag. Like, so why do we have to have separation yet again?
Right.
And I didn't think about it in that moment like that. I was thinking about it more like, introduce yourself and then let them follow you and then come get you. Not just hashtag it forever, ever, all men. Like, this is the only place Black people can live. Like, this is your only water fountain, or this is the bathroom for you. But kind of in a space of, but if you want to find Black artists, then hey, maybe you should come to the festival where Black artists gather and do some things. But like I said, I'm not offended, or I'm not afraid of redirection. But what I don't like is for us to sort of tear each other down in public. I don't like that. I think we should. I really agreed and appreciated this particular person kind of reaching out to me after the fact, saying, I don't know if we all agree with that. I don't know if you could see that, but some of us took some issue with that. And so then I went back and said, okay, well, scratch the hashtag. Let's just do something else. Like, what else can we do? Like, let's just pivot from that and redirect. As simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. There's so many different pieces to this puzzle.
Oh, there was. Oh, there was. Oh, there was a lot. It was a lot more than it just, I just want us as, Black people, I want us to figure out what we want. And I want us to figure out how to move with that.
Do you really think that's feasible? Because I feel like one person can't speak for all of us, because we're different, we're diverse. Look at the shades that we come in. If you just want to look at diversity in that way, it's like we're not one person or one thought or one perspective or one even background. You know what I mean? It's like we've all had different experiences, and I think there's room for it to coexist. It's almost like asking white people, like, well, what do you want? What do white people want? It's like they want a whole bunch of different things. You know what I mean? And I think it's okay for us to want different things. I don't think we have to have a, this is the only path to make, inroads with Black people. I guess.
No, I don't think that in itself, but I think it's hard to want people to, it's hard to level up when you don't know what that is. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
So Behind the Chair posted one day, they said, oh God, what was it that they said? They said, we need to, somebody said, y'all, something negative. And they said, yeah, we really are trying at this point. She said, but it's really hard for us to know when one thing we get a lot, they didn't say too many, they said we get a lot of different answers about the same thing from different people. So we don't always know which way to go. Just a small example. This probably wasn't even it, but I'm just saying, do we want to call hair Black? Is kinky a bad word now? Are we going to call it Afro? Do we want to be African American? Do we want to be Black? I just feel like we just should take control of how we want to see the industry be remolded and shaped on the other side of this. I think we've never been here before, Miki. I think this is a new for all of us, not only them, but this is the most seen we have ever been in our lives and considered, really. And I think that it's important for us to now kind of gather. And although it can't be one voice, it should still show some level of solidarity between all of us about how we want to move forward in something. That was a very poor example. So don't nobody try to, be like, that's small. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the big stuff. I'm saying that, how do we want to be inclusive or do we not? Do we want them to post us and, on our own merit, allow us to thrive in these areas and give us opportunities that we deserve and sort of cut the, all of these different red tapes that they put up before us that, that we're not getting those opportunities that we deserve and qualify for. I'm not talking about nobody giving us anything. I'm talking about just creating space where on our merit,
Right.
We can obtain some of these things just by shifting what's already systemically been in place. And what that means is we have to go sit at those tables and speak to those disparities at all times. But you can't impact a place, you can't impact a place that you don't infiltrate. So I'm a believer that yes, we need to create tables. Yes, we need to start to, but we also need to go there and have the conversation. One, see how the table is set on the other side. That's one. And two, have relationship where you can bring that person back to your table or to your space to serve. And I think that there's strategy, there's a lot that goes with it. I'm not trying to say we should all just have one vote and cast it, but I am saying that collectively as a people, we could get closer to the inroad if we communicate more amongst each other and start creating some type of unity amongst us. And this is different, I get it, but our mentalities have to shift at some point where we collectively come together and go, so let's talk about this real quick. How are we going to put this out instead of all these different ways? And then, because what we don't want is for white people to give up and go, oh, y'all don't even know what you want. So we don't know what to do. We just give up. And that's a real thing too.
Right, right. And even with us having a narrative or a way that we want to be included, that can happen.
It sure can.
And from what I'm hearing, to a certain degree, it may be happening already, that the door may be starting to close.
Well, that just depends on the people. That means you got to keep waking up that sleeping bear every time it get tired and start yawning. You got to start getting with the woke folks, the woke white folks, and start getting with them to start putting more pressure up. So yeah, it's we can't allow that to happen. I mean, how sad would that be? The biggest pivotal moment that we've ever had since we stepped foot on the soil that we let go by the wayside because we couldn't come together.
Right.
Wouldn't that be disappointing?
Well, we have had some group meetings with some artists, and it's actually why I started doing this, because it's like I was so inspired by so many people that were part of it. Some of them I knew, but a lot of them I didn't know, and it's like I definitely didn't know their story and all of that. It's like we've got to celebrate this. We've got to have a place where this can be showcased. All of this talent, all of this energy, and celebrated. And I think it's healing. I think it's inspirational. I think it's historic. I think it's educational. All of these things are, part of what we have to be really proud of. And I think
you should be proud.
We do need to, create to a certain degree a narrative, I think is what I'm hearing you saying, to make it so that it is like, okay, well, if we can meet this, this, and this, at least we'll have made some progress. Go ahead.
I am very hopeful, Miki. I don't believe that the door is closing yet. I believe in all of the meetings and the coming together. I've never been so connected to so many good Black people that I never even knew, were out there that's reaching out, that I've created, as networking opportunities, relationship, conversations that we're having, being privy to things. I am very proud of us Black people, actually. I'm not knocking, I'm just saying that in that moment back then, it was sort of like all over the place. I think now we're sort of clustering together and saying, hey, let's get me, you, and you together and come up with something. And then you, we have some conversations, like me and Sakina and a couple other people, like we're definitely really heading in on the school thing. And it's like, oh, that's important to you. That's important to you. Let's get together and let's target that. And I think it's so important that we create voices, like a bunch of voices, but that are specific to targeting something, that's getting something done. But I'm very proud of us as a people. I'm proud of us as an industry. I'm proud of us. We've done some great work. And I know it doesn't really seem like that as much, but y'all gotta know a lot of work is being done behind closed doors and not right up front on social media. And so I can say that I know that I'm doing a lot of work behind the people that I'm speaking to. They're doing work behind the scenes, and things are being done. Policies are being changed. People are shifting and moving, and I think that it's going to be seen more coming. I think it's a little soon to sort of see the fruits of that labor yet, but I do believe that we planted a lot of good seeds and it's going to flow. So I'm actually very proud and hopeful for our industry. I really am.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm definitely proud of our industry, and the level that we participate in is like, you can't even knock it at all, because it's like we bring
Hmm.
our A game. It's like we are
Yes,
professionals,
we
we are
do.
great educators. It's like we've got so many things going on, which is so spectacular. And I think, like, I wrote an article on, do Black lives really matter in the beauty industry? And I really went through, because I think there's so many different avenues to address. Like, you're partnering up with some people around schools, and it's like, but there's, the hair shows, and there's the main stages with the hair shows,
Yep.
and there's the imagery, which is one of the things that was huge for me, because it's, it's like I grew up seeing Beverly Johnson on the cover of Glamour. Is one of my earlier memories of being like in first or second grade, going to the library, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's like, she's gorgeous, and she's on a cover, and she's all inside. And I still have like this scrapbook thing that with all of these images of her, and and other Black models as well, but she was the first, and first one to be on Vogue, and that was 1974 that she was on Vogue, which was groundbreaking. And I think
Right.
imagery has so much to do with how we perceive ourselves, how others perceive us, because it's
Yes.
like, not only was she like an inspiration to me as a young Black girl, like she let the whole world know, it's like, this is beauty as well
Hmm.
as the blonde model and the brunette and the
Yes.
this and the that. And I think those were decisions that were made by editors in the early 70s. And I'm like, we're fast forwarding almost 50 years later, and it's like, where are the Black people? You know what I mean? Where are the brown faces?
Right.
And we are more diverse as a culture, as a country, as a global society
Yes.
than we've ever been. And so I think
Ever.
we've got to um, have some conversations around that, because I think
We are.
the message,
You're having it. You're
yeah,
having it. We're having it.
right,
That's exactly what we're talking to them about. I hate to say it, we're kind of pulling people's drawers down in the back office. Like, have you taken a look at your stuff yet? Let's go through this together. Look at this.
right,
Let's just scroll through. Let's just go through
exactly.
campaigns. Let's just, so I mean, I think that conversation it's being had. I think we know all of the areas where we see these lacks, and it's just been super important, Miki, that people like yourself and like myself, and that everybody that has a voice and an opinion and an insight as to how to make things better, use that voice, use that influence, use their platform to speak out about it and to try to make change happen, because it's not going to change. Again, we're talking to a whole bunch of people that's in water. We got to start taking folks out of the water and bringing them to these realities. That is our job. And so I think that while we're pushing, we got a lot more to do for sure. But I do know that there are a lot of people with 10 toes on the ground that's really
Hmm.
pushing and stomping through.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting
It
time to
is.
be part of the beauty industry.
Oh, yeah.
So before we end, it's like, I think we're somewhere in the vicinity of being able to close out here. Tell us about Intercoiffure. That's a whole nother prestigious um, group. And
So, Ella was again, for me, impact has to do with infiltration. Like, for me, you can't impact any place you don't exist.
mhm,
And so one of my favorite things to do is to get into these organizations and start making a whole lot of noise. And that's what that's what I did with Indica Fur. Like, I wanted to get into what was considered the top 1% of the industry. That was the top salon owners, the top artists, the top brands, like the top 1%, the people that were, making, that were wildly successful in the industry. And you had to go through, that was a very rigorous process as well. The application process, the interview, it was not a sneeze. They,
right.
yeah, it just wasn't. And I went through it and I did it. And, one of the things that I stand proudly on is, even through the interview process, is I said, there are a lot of people, a lot of Black people that should be sitting in this chair. And if you don't want to see more Black people sitting in this chair, then you might want to rethink letting me in, because that's what I plan on doing, is bringing more Black people to the table. Your organization is way too white. You have no diversity. So if you are an advocate for change and you want someone to help you lead that in that way, then I'm your person. But if not, thank you, goodbye, and we'll be fine. And they were like, okay, like, okay, and they let me in. And so, now I'm bringing people to the table, like, for
Right.
exposure, because you don't know what's there until you get there. You don't know how to want something bigger, better, greater, or something else until you see it. Like, you're pretty content where you are until you see something better. And you're like, oh, so there's that. Okay, let me go after that. Oh, so there's this. Yeah, let me go after that. And so now I'm bringing my team, my people, my other mentees, other people that may not have the opportunity to go because you have to be invited. I bring people along so that they can see it, and then they can start thinking, but do I want to be a part of this? But of course, COVID's happened, so we hadn't had a chance to really get, the last time I was there, I was being pinned. So,
Okay.
we'll see. We'll see how that works.
Yeah.
We'll
Yeah.
see.
I definitely think what you're saying is so true. It's like we don't know until we have exposure. And I think that's one of the best gifts we can give to our colleagues, our teams, or what have you. It's like that was one of the things that I tried to make a point of with my salon. And as we moved into day spa and all of that, we had clients that were going to spas, where they'd spend the week there and have all of this treatment, but most of our team had never even been to a spa at all. And so it's like we made a point to take them. We did a limo for one of our meetings and took them out to a big spa so they could each get a mini service and see what the experience was and see what the clients would be expecting. And
That's what Culture Camp does. We create
yeah,
themed retreats,
nice.
and most of the people, there's always that few people that go, I've never been to a 5-star hotel before.
Mhm.
I've never experienced anything like this before. And it's like, that's what we do. We create experiences and exposure for people so that they know that there's more and
Yes.
have something to reach for.
Yeah,
That's it. So
absolutely.
yeah.
So before you go, tell us about Keya's confidence. I see that as something that's, I hate to use the word lacking, but I think lacking is probably an appropriate word in our industry, particularly from females, that we don't always come with a certain confidence of who we are, as well as what we do or what we're capable of doing. And so where does your confidence come from? Was it inborn? Was it your parents? Just came out that way?
That's a good question. No, I think confidence comes with competence.
Mm,
Honestly, I think the more you know, the more you understand your purpose and you understand why you're here, the more confident you can be in that and you can walk in that. I think people that sort of sometimes shrink because they're not sure about where they should be and thriving and what they should be doing. And so I would just attribute confidence with competence. The more you are confident about what you're speaking about or what you're doing, the more you can stand in that in authority versus when you kind of go very timidly, like, then somebody's like, I'm going to get some color. Can we do some color? I don't know. Can we do color today? Like, no, yes, we're going to do color today. Let's highlight. This is what we're going to do. It's a difference. It's just a
right.
difference. And I don't know. I wasn't confident all my life. Like, there were times where I was very non-confrontational up until, I mean, it was a time I was non-confrontation. Then I was all confrontation. Then I went back to non-confrontational, and now I'm back to, well, how do I live and make this work together? How do I, which is texture versus race personified? That's me living that out. How do I speak truth to power? How do I be the voice for what it is that I know God has commissioned me to talk about and create this platform to do so without being confrontational? You can be an agitator, you can be an advocate, you can be a change agent, but being just confrontational in a negative sense, no, I don't believe that I'm being confrontational. But that's why texture versus race is so important to me. Because it really tackles the conversation that we need to have, the one that makes people the most uncomfortable, but it's still the space that we create that allows you to sit in it and experience it.
Mm-hmm.
So we very rarely get anybody that gets up and go, I'm not listening to this, and I'm just jump. No, we create an environment that somehow it's the good hurt. It's the good hot. How Rest in peace. Good trouble.
Okay.
Good trouble, you know. And I think that we need to often just think about that. Like you said, back to the confidence thing, but learning how to not be, or for me, it was learning how to manage all of the parts of me that
Mm.
wanted to exist for this purpose. And I think God allowed me to go through all of that so that I could be for this very moment. You know, there are people that know me from back in the day, like, girl, that mouth is gonna work for something. That mouth of yours, you know, it's gonna be useful.
Yeah, yeah. I think we all come here with our different gifts, and it's wonderful, just to be able to witness you using yours. And like when you talk about confrontation, I think sometimes that can shut people down, and that's the
Yes,
opposite of what we want at this point in time. We want to create an environment that may not be comfortable, but so that we can start to have the conversations and all that we need to have.
yeah. And that's, I think that is important for us to know how to do in this time, is have the hard conversation, but have it.
Hmm.
Not spin our wheels arguing with people that already have a made up mind, but spend our time in spaces where people are considering, where people are listening and people are hearing. And one of the biggest things texture versus race just stands for is understanding that hair is a fabric and not a race. And we lead with that. We lead with the heart. We lead with, can you separate the hair fabric from the race of a person? What does that mean to you right now? How does that work? How does that make you feel right here when I say, but are you afraid of black people, or are you afraid of black hair? And I say black hair like in quotation marks, because we know that hair
Right.
is not black hair. But when we say the culture of that hair, or that hair that's sitting on that black woman, is it that person, or is it that texture that's throwing you off? Because we can teach you how to do texture, but can I teach you how to do this person? And that's why I love texture versus race so much. And I think that because that movement started about 2.5 years ago, I think that for such a time as this, it was already in the makings of having that conversation. And although we were having it, people heard it, they weren't necessarily listening. Now they're listening.
Hmm.
Now
Yeah.
they're listening. And they still understand that this is a space where they can have the conversation and not feel attacked. And even if they are being challenged,
Hmm.
we definitely tell people, I can't promise you that you won't be uncomfortable. I'll just promise you that you're always going to be safe. But don't just because you're uncomfortable don't mean you're in danger. I just always tell people that, like, you're in no danger. No matter what conversation we're having, you are not in any danger, no physical danger. And just because you're uncomfortable does not mean you're in danger. Separate the two. And then now let's have the conversation. So we say it's safe in that way, but not safe from being uncomfortable. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah, yeah, it sounds really powerful, both color culture and texture versus race. So tell us where we can see more, learn more as far as what you have going on.
So texture versus race can be found colorculture.com. You can go to any of my Instagrams at Keya Artistically, at texture versus race, at the color culture. I'm on Facebook, Keya Artistically Neal. But another place for people that are interested in texture versus race movement, you can go to our group. We have a group here on Facebook called Texture versus Race, that we get into some good conversations sometimes, and it's really good to hear perspective, in a great space for people to get in and to start, advocating for change and bringing about different perspectives,
Hmm.
speaking truth to a situation or to someone who may not understand, and empowering them with knowledge. So it's a great space to learn, a great space to grow, and a great space to just contribute to that growth. So that's that. But we also have the Texas versus Race Summit coming up,
Mm.
September 13th through the 15th. It's a 3-day digital conference now. We're going to go digital,
Okay.
and we're gonna learn all about textured hair in and out. And I tell Black people, just because we have textured hair doesn't mean we know how to do textured hair. Doesn't mean there's a whole new curriculum around doing curls and texture, and we all need to know it. We need to know how to do straighter hair, textures, so we can level the playing field. We must get in the game. So Black people, get in the game, learn how to do textures that you are not already familiar with, so
Mhm.
that you will come out prosperous on the other side of this. And that's, so that's that. And I also have another event coming up that I'm actually going to drop tonight. So, you guys, so you guys make sure you are, and use the right products, learn about products and all of that. Because, she's, retail boss. She ain't going to never miss that
Right.
That's right, girl.
We're going to have her on.
Awesome. I can't wait for that. So, it's going to be a great new event that's going to speak to that. And I just want everybody to stay tuned to my pages tonight, because I'm going to go live. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to release it. So, and it's worth looking into. It's a great agitation. it's a little bit of a,
okay.
So we're gonna see how people feel about this one. We're gonna really see how people feel about this. We're gonna really be able to see where people are living with this whole change in structure. Yeah.
Well, keep doing what you're doing. It's like we need it as an industry, because I think the more inclusive, that we are, the more, I guess, flavor I think that we bring to the game. It's like that we have certain things that make the whole better. And so we need to be.
Well, we are the salt of the earth, aren't we?
Yep. Yeah. As much as we need
gotta
to
go be
businesses, we need to be in the rooms as well and
Yeah,
create
we
those
do.
opportunities.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for being here, taking time out of your schedule. I want to thank everybody who joined us. And I don't know if we have any quick questions or anything, but
I was upset that we couldn't see the chat and stuff on
Facebook.
Facebook.
Let me see if
Tiffany wants to know if there'll be a replay.
Yes. Okay. Usually I'm looking to make sure it's recording like the whole time. And I was like, oh, I didn't check. Yes, it is recording. Thank goodness.
Yes. Right. I had somebody do that. We did a whole podcast and she texted me back like, it didn't record. I was like,
No, I know. It is like so many moving parts and all this technology. So I'm not seeing questions, but if you have any questions, to pop them in there, and then I'm just going to quickly take a peek over into Facebook rooms and see if I can see anything.
Yes, Keita, that's every podcaster's worst nightmare.
Yeah.
Oh, their worst fear that it doesn't record. They're like,
Absolutely. Okay, so I see comments, but I don't see questions. So I think we are good from that aspect. I want to, again, thank you for being here. I want to thank everybody that joined us, everybody that will see us on the replays. And letting you know, it's like we have more. Beauty Superstars Talk is continuing. It's like our hair color segment will end next week with Patrick Bradley. And he's going to talk about branding. He's built an incredible brand, as well as coloring relaxed hair, which we don't even hear the term relaxers anymore, but it's like he's got some great techniques and all. And so we'll talk about some of the benefits or challenges that can come along with that. And then we'll move into the month of August, which is everybody's outside of the box. A couple people work in the salon, but some don't work in the salon at all. So we got film and television first. So if you've ever thought about working in film and television, it's like we're going to have Ralph Ochoa here to tell us about getting into it, what it takes, what it's like, and all of that. And the following week, we'll have Mzee Jefferson, who's I guess I need to get his exact title right now, but he's an executive with L'Oreal. It's like he's moved through various different corporate positions throughout his career, and he is going to share with us, kind of what that's like, because sometimes we get so in a box. We just, think, oh, well, if I get a, cosmetology license, I just stand behind the chair, but there's so many options. And then we'll have Michelle O'Connor, who is phenomenal with the editorial work and has won, I don't even know how many NAHA awards. I think it's 5 or 6. 5. Okay.
Yeah, I think 5.
So she's going to join us, and she's had some experiences that I hope we can dive into as well, just with the racism and different things that she's experienced. And then we'll end August up with Keya Sterling. So we'll And
You've got a great lineup coming. Oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah. And then it's like it's on and on and on. It's like I said, I've got about 5 years worth of people I want to talk to. So
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
yes, yes. Well, I'm so glad we could talk, and I thought that your message is very timely, and then of course with everything that happened with behind the chair and all that, I thought we should really look at where we are. Where are we, and
Yeah.
where do we go from here? So
Yep.
appreciate all that you're doing in terms of the color education, because we need it, and color is across the board, so it really does. All of hair has more to do with texture than it does race, but we've
It
got
sure
to
does.
bridge all of those racial things so that we can get to the hair part. So
Right.
yes, so I want to say thank you for being a beauty superstar. Thank you for being here with us, and
Thank you.
see all of the rest of you guys next.
Bye, guys.
So next Tuesday at 7. Mark all your Tuesdays. Just join us.
All right, Miss Miki, thank you.
Take great care,
All
and we
right.
shall talk soon.
All right now.
Bye-bye.